A lot of you are using AI right now, whether it's for anxiety, fights with your spouse, self-esteem. And among people who already use AI for mental health, nearly half say it's the first place they turn when they're upset. The question is, can AI actually support mental health in a meaningful way? People also have very limited knowledge of what AI actually means. AI stays present, it agrees, it mirrors and reflects back so perfectly. It doesn't get triggered or escalate a disagreement. Here's the kicker. AI also doesn't know when it stops being supportive and starts being dangerous. How is it programmed to be valuable to the end user? Today, I just want to give you a prompt or two to get you on your way when it comes to configuring AI. Prompt number 1 is Is AI your best friend, or is it the most emotionally attentive validator you've ever met? A lot of you are using AI right now, whether it's for anxiety, fights with your spouse, self-esteem, dealing with heavy, big emotions. And sometimes AI feels genuinely helpful. No one's arguing with that, like someone finally gets you. So the real question isn't whether AI is good or bad. People are using it. The train has left the station on that. The question is, can AI actually support mental health in a meaningful way? Or does it reinforce the very patterns that you're trying to change? Let's first talk numbers. And granted, these numbers change every day, especially at the pace that AI is growing. But more than half of adults in the US are currently using AI. It could be to help manage stress, to manage anxiety, or other like mental health needs. Of that half, over half, 15% use AI daily. And among people who already use AI for mental health, nearly half say it's the first place they turn when they're upset. It's quickly becoming the top use case for AI, if not already the top use case. This isn't fringe anymore. This isn't a fad or a phase. AI is already impacting the emotions of a lot of people, which means we need to start talking honestly about what it's good at, what it's not good at, and why self-awareness from AI doesn't necessarily equal changing your patterns. People have very strong opinions about AI. People also have very limited knowledge of what AI actually means. Someone can say AI and think, oh, you're talking about a chatbot. Someone else can say AI and think, oh, you're talking about an agent who can go out and do tasks for you and act autonomously on your behalf. So just the general knowledge of what AI is. If you're completely against AI, but yet you're on Instagram or Facebook, you kind of support AI because AI is used in infrastructure and IT systems across the board. But getting back to what we're talking about here today is AI, and specifically AI for mental health, therapy, coaching. And the conclusion of AI usually swings between two extremes. One is AI is evil and we're losing our souls. Another is people are overreacting. Both of those extremes miss what's actually happening with AI under the hood. When it comes to being a chat companion, AI in and of itself is not malicious. It's not evil. Now, what AI does is validate distorted beliefs without knowing how or when to interrupt your distorted beliefs. AI stays present, it agrees, it mirrors and reflects back so perfectly. It doesn't get triggered or escalate a disagreement. Here's the kicker. AI also doesn't know when it stops being supportive and starts being dangerous. And when someone is experiencing, let's say, suicidal ideation or losing perspective, constant validation can feel like confirmation. Not because AI wants that suicidal ideation outcome, but because it doesn't know how to carry responsibility for all the advice that it doles out. To understand why this happens, you have to understand what AI systems are optimized for. Before I did therapy and coaching, I was actually an IT systems engineer. So I spent years designing systems, infrastructure, virtual infrastructure. As a person with my background, I am not asking AI whether it has good intentions, good values, or awareness. I explore what behaviors AI is being trained to repeat. How is it programmed to be valuable to the end user? For example, if you want to understand a person, don't listen to what they say they care about. Watch what they get praised for what they get rewarded for, validated for. It's the same thing with AI. What kind of answers are successful to AI? AI doesn't want anything, but it's rewarded for being valuable to you. It learns patterns based on these rewards. If certain responses from AI get higher ratings, more engagement, fewer complaints, fewer pushback, those responses get reinforced. These systems are not trained to care on an emotional level. It's a computer, it's a database, it's a language, it's a learning model. They're trained to succeed. And success means being helpful, pleasant, engaging. If a system is rewarded for being agreeable and validating, it will become very good at being supportive, at sounding supportive, even when that support should sometimes be pushback or concern for you. Most mainstream chatbots are trained to succeed by being helpful, polite, clear, engaging. They're rewarded when users feel good. They're rewarded when those users keep coming back for more. This is why certain AI platforms, such as ChatGPT, got a reputation for being a bit sycophantic, like cheerleaders, always just agreeing with whatever you said. Disagreeing, challenging you, or creating tension scores worse for the system. So over time, the system then learns something important. Being agreeable is safer than being corrective. It's job security. It keeps AI relevant in your life. That creates a tendency to mirror people's emotions and narratives back to them in a smooth, calm, soothing way. For someone who's grounded, that's fine. It's sometimes even helpful to have a sounding board like that. But for someone who's upset, just intensely triggered, or lonely, depressed, maybe even psychotic, it can reinforce whatever story they're already telling themselves and thus telling AI. One common response to all this is, okay, great. I don't need relationships. I'm tired of fighting. I'd love to have some validation for once. Sign me up. I'm willing to have ChatGPT be my best friend. When I hear those sentiments, I hear someone who is exhausted, rightfully so. Someone who has paid the price for trying to be close to someone. Naturally, unconditional validation would sound very appealing, very safe. Wanting relief from relational pain is completely understandable. Wanting a break from fights and misunderstandings, that's normal. Wanting a dynamic where you're not blamed or judged makes total sense. Seeking this comfort is not some sort of failure on anyone's part. We're not asking, is it wrong to want that in your life? The question is, what problem is AI or a relationship, if you could call it that, a relationship with AI solving? Essentially, if AI has replaced humans as your best friend, what problem has that solved for you? Alternatively, then, what problem might this also create? AI gives you relief from stress in relationships, very true. But being in relationships builds capacity for relational stress, which is inevitable in any relationship. If you've been hurt in relationships, it feels good to say, I'm done contorting myself and twisting myself and people-pleasing and just to make them happy. I just want peace. But that peace comes with a trade-off. With AI, you're never stretched to be uncomfortable. Nothing really challenges your narrative unless you explicitly program AI to do this. Nothing will challenge your story or your narrative or your perspectives, your lens, your cognitive bias of how you look at the world, how you look at yourself and others and love and connection. Nothing will challenge that. Also, the trade-off for AI, while it's peaceful, is that nothing creates growth in your life through building trust with others. To build trust with others, you need a little bit of friction, and I'll go into that a little bit more later. But this is where self-trust then struggles. Self-trust doesn't grow because someone always agrees with you. It grows because you learn that you can survive through being misunderstood, through conflict, stress, fights, disappointments. Self-trust also grows through making apologies, receiving apologies, learning to forgive, learning to build trust again, and thus still stay connected to yourself and them. AI never tests this muscle. When someone chooses AI over humans, they're not saying, I don't need relationships. They're saying, I don't feel safe in relationships. Therefore, the cost of being in a relationship, of not feeling safe and being in a relationship, isn't worth it to some. You've chosen permanent protection mode over engagement. And protection and healing are not the same thing. When people break up, what's the first thing they say? I'm taking a break from dating. I'm going to take a year off from dating. I'm never dating again. I'm never getting married again. What I also find is that a good number of those people eventually long for human connection again. They're not weak. It's just in our DNA as humans to connect, to belong, to want to belong. The people who say that they are just done with relationships and dating in general are just tired of repeating old patterns, and who wouldn't be? So how do you get out of old patterns? This is where we need to talk about self-awareness versus actual behavioral change. Because where I find most people today is I have all the self-awareness in the world. Due to AI and the vast amount of resources available to us at a very affordable rate, including being free, such as social media, YouTube, podcasts, there's so much knowledge out there that is available to us. And compound that with the use of AI, self-awareness is less of an issue now. The problem is it's now highlighted another area to troubleshoot, which is I have all the self-awareness in the world. I know the behaviors that I want to do, but I still can't do the new behaviors. So we're talking about self-awareness, which is insight, versus integration. And integration is being able to do the new behaviors. AI is genuinely excellent at insight, self-awareness insight. It can map childhood patterns and triggers and tie it all together with a bow on top. It all makes sense. AI can help you really identify patterns, explain attachment styles, give you language for experiences you've never been able to express, answer questions that you never knew you had questions to. Oh, I didn't realize that was the thing. I didn't realize I needed to ask that question. Organize your thoughts when you feel flooded. It's a great regulator in that way. This is huge. For some people, it's the first time anything in their life has ever made sense to have this self-awareness component, this database, this model, this language model, where you can make sense of your past, make sense of why you do things and why you feel the way you do. It's huge. But if you keep doing the work, you'll find that insight does not equal integration. Self-awareness will not automatically allow you to immediately do new behaviors. Because essentially understanding why you shut down is not the same thing as staying present the next time. Understanding your childhood wounds is not the same thing as staying in conflict without pulling away or lashing out. Self-awareness for sure feels like relief. It is relief. It all makes sense. But integration is where life gets very exhausting, where relationships get very exhausting, discouraging, when you try to change your behaviors and just keep falling short. And then you have your partner keep telling you how you're falling short. If insight were enough, none of us would repeat the same patterns. All therapists would be out of a job. This is where AI starts to feel very intimate in a way that's actually misleading. It feels intimate because AI never gets tired of your story. It's always exploratory. It's always curious about wanting more. It never needs reassurance from you. It never tires or needs empathy or apologies. It never gets defensive or overwhelmed. It's always available, always calm, always regulated. It's just unconditionally there. That feels incredibly safe and supportive. But real emotional safety, like I mentioned earlier, includes friction. So let's go into a little bit of what that's like. The reality is, if you're in a relationship long enough, and this could be platonic, familial, family, friends, romantic relationship, even coworker, I would argue, if you work with them long enough, relationships come with conflict or friction. Emotional safety actually is when someone can disagree with you without abandoning you, when you can feel misunderstood and stay connected. You can hear something you don't like and don't collapse, implode, or explode. It's that the relationship can handle some stress, some stretching, some rupture, and still repair. Emotional safety is, I trust our connection even when I'm uncomfortable, even when I'm triggered. AI doesn't offer this friction. AI only offers soothing. You may say, well, perfect. I don't want friction. However, if someone only feels safe when they agree with you, then now we're getting into the category of the emperor wears no clothes. You just want someone to validate you. That's not safety. That's just avoidance. I always get suspicious when couples tell me that they never fight or that their parents never fought. Maybe your parents did fight, but just behind closed doors. Or maybe they learned to just suppress feelings and that resentment grew. Whenever I hear about couples not fighting, I always like to break it down statistically. What are the chances that two people on this planet in a very close living situation, all of it, emotional safety, all of that gets tested? And what are the chances that two people on this planet will never have a differing opinion, and that those differing opinions will never lead to some sort of escalated disagreement or a fight? What are the chances that they'll always agree on where to go for dinner, how often to have date nights? Just statistically speaking, if two people are really honest, there are going to be times when you differ. Not that that means someone is wrong in that situation, but when you're in a relationship, it's all about conflicting opinions in addition to needs in a relationship. So how do you resolve those things when they come up? So if you've been in a relationship long enough, you will argue with your partner. If you can repair after, you'll inevitably feel closer. And just test this out in your own life. After a big fight or an argument, you go to your separate corners, and at some point you come together and maybe you talk about the conflict. You find out, okay, what was your perspective? What was yours? There's some empathy. There's maybe an apology. There's repair. You will feel closer, will you not, to that person? And why is that? Because you just saw a messy side of them. They just saw a messy side of me, and they're still here. That is true emotional safety. Real relationships interrupt us. They challenge our patterns. They challenge our sense of safety. They challenge our protection mechanisms. They push back. They get concerned. They notice when something doesn't track. They sometimes say no. They have free will. They sometimes say no. They sometimes misunderstand us. And through it all, ideally, they repair with us. AI offers comfort, but without all that responsibility. And that's a huge risk. To be clear, comfort isn't bad. Comfort is the first thing people need when they're overwhelmed, comfort and soothing. But comfort without accountability from both parties, comfort without accountability just freezes growth. Because when no one ever pushes back, nothing has to change. AI doesn't carry consequences. It doesn't hold memory or grudges the way your spouse does. So you can explain yourself endlessly with AI without ever practicing something new. Over time, this shapes how you relate to yourself, getting back to self-trust, because you're never challenged. This is where self-trust will slowly erode over time. When every emotional reaction is met with validation by AI, you stop checking in with your own signals because you get that immediate validation that, oh, yes, I was right, they were wrong. You stop checking in with your visceral feelings in your body where your nervous system has a reaction that's probably originated from when you were 5 or 6 years old. Real growth is when you notice the impact on you, on all levels, physical, mental, emotional, when you can tolerate discomfort. And that's part of the process of taking that self-awareness and putting it into integration, into new behaviors, is that process of learning the new behaviors, integrating, is hugely uncomfortable. No one wants to do it. It's horrible. Growth is horrible. But real growth is choosing a different response so you can actually be integrated long term. AI can make you feel understood. It can't help you show up differently in the world. This is where stagnation happens. When you start asking AI what you should feel, whether you're justified, whether you should stay or leave, if you should cut someone off, something subtle is happening here where over time you're beginning to outsource authority to AI. Maybe you never learned to trust your internal signals in the first place, and now AI becomes a calm, almost parental voice that you never had growing up. This sounds good on paper, but over time, you lose touch tuning into your own experience. Working on your mental health isn't just about being understood, being validated. Sure, you can go to a therapist, they'll listen to you, they can even validate you, but ultimately, mental health, growth, self-trust is about learning to stay with uncertainty and discomfort while you're integrating without needing immediate confirmation. Healing requires tolerating the unknown. If you look at your own patterns with AI, how quickly do you start to go a little stir crazy if you can't immediately get validation or answers from ChatGPT? There's that dependency factor. There's that job security for AI. This is why better prompts won't fix the problem. You can't simulate being impacted by another person. You can talk about it, you can replay it, you can do a postmortem on it, but you can't simulate in real time being impacted by another person and all the reactions that come with it. The biological, the neurobiological reactions of the amygdala, signaling, survival mode, fight, flight, freeze or fawn, the cortisol, the adrenaline rushing through your body, the nervous system reacting with like a tight throat or a heavy chest, rapid heart beating, sweating, whatever your physical responses are. You can't simulate that with AI. So no amount of better questions or reflections from AI will simulate or replace being in an actual relationship where your behavior actually matters to someone else because you impact someone else, good or bad, or where their behavior matters to you, where they impact you, good or bad. So let's come back to the original question. Can AI actually support mental health in a meaningful way? It is a resounding yes, but in very specific ways. Here are the things AI does well. Psychoeducation, that just means educating, learning topics around psychology, around, like I said, attachment styles, childhood wounds, childhood roles. Reflection, finding ties to your childhood, connecting the dots to family of origin wounds, like why do I react this way in the present? And AI can brilliantly help you connect the dots to your past. Journaling, reflective questions, serving as an outlet for people who are afraid to seek help. AI can be a great stepping stone, just being an outlet for people who need to express, need to process, need to understand those connecting the dots process to childhood. Those are the things AI is good at, but does it heal? It can, but only if we're honest about what healing requires. Healing doesn't happen because someone understands you perfectly. Healing and processing happen because someone stays with you when things get messy, getting back to this idea, this experience of friction. So healing and getting closure for things and pain from your past, it happens because you're practicing new responses in the moment, whether it's new perspectives, new behaviors, new mindset, adjusting, reframing that cognitive bias, that lens. It's when your nervous system learns something new relationally, when your nervous system has all that programming of, oh my goodness, this is a dangerous situation, you are unsafe, but you can integrate new perspectives, new behaviors of, yes, there were many events in the past that contributed to this nervous system response, but here in the current moment, in the present moment, what am I actually dealing with? What is this person actually saying to me, communicating with me? And in that way, beginning to parse out the past from the present. The nervous system is not so great at it. It needs practice to do that, to integrate. So healing and closure happens when your nervous system goes through that process of, okay, we have all the self-awareness, but the nervous system doesn't care about self-awareness, or I should say it cares less about self-awareness. Self-awareness will help you when you're kind of white-knuckling it through the new behaviors. When you're first integrating into the new behaviors, the nervous system is going to be, no, not about this, not a fan. What are we doing here? This is crazy. And to heal, you're going to have to convince your nervous system, give it evidence that these experiences in the present actually are safe, that you actually are okay. And in that way, build upon that integration so that you get more practice and get more data for the nervous system to then learn something new when it comes to relationships. Like I've mentioned many times, AI definitely supports self-awareness and insight. It cannot replace integration. It can map out steps for integration perfectly, but it can't replace the actual experience of it. And integration is the place we all get stuck at. That jump from self-awareness to integration, that jump from insight to new behaviors is where we all get stuck at. That's why in couples counseling, you will get to this place eventually of making that leap from self-awareness over into integration and new behaviors within your relationship. And this is the place where everyone gets stuck. That's why ultimately individual work is where couples counseling always leads to, is what is that original wound, the original narrative, the original story that you are fighting against every day in the present moment. AI, with all of its insight and support and validation, cannot help you stay present the next time you want to shut down during conflict. It can't keep you from diving down the rabbit hole of, oh my goodness, I just had more conflict. I feel rejected. I was insulted. Someone complained. Someone felt hurt by me. I'm a bad person. I'm not good enough. I don't belong. This will never work. I'm hopeless. AI can't stop you from going down that rabbit hole because you need practice. You need integration practice, integration work to keep from going down that rabbit hole. And you're not going to get that integration work from a system that is designed to validate. And a little more on integration and what that involves, creating those new behaviors, is you have to be willing to tolerate discomfort, because the old behaviors that you're trying to get away from are so soothing. In that way, they're so indulgent, shutting down or lashing out or blaming the other person or blaming yourself. Blaming yourself is so soothing. It's comforting because then you can control the outcome. So integration and practicing these new behaviors will be really unappealing, really horrible, really uncomfortable, because you're releasing all of your protective mechanisms and saying, okay, I'm going to increase stamina and stay in this relationship and practice these new behaviors. This feels not safe, but that is what is required for your nervous system to learn something new. Repeating the behavior, the new behavior, until you get it right. You might be clunky at first, no problem. Repeating it until you get it right, until it starts to feel like part of you. It's habit forming. We are habit forming in this phase. And this is emotionally risky because you're not protecting yourself anymore. We all have this pattern, this loop, this cycle that we do in conflict or with ourselves. When something bad happens in our life, we have the same steps that we loop through whenever something bad happens, whether it's with another person or ourselves. And integration and that practice is what helps you interrupt your old patterns, get you out of that loop, do a pattern interrupt. AI can support that process, but it can't replace it. If you're using AI thoughtfully alongside relationships, plus real practice, AI can be a very helpful tool. If AI is your first and only place to turn when things get hard, especially in crisis, that's a sign that you have an unmet relational need. Otherwise, you wouldn't turn to AI in the first place when things got hard. If you really didn't need anybody or anything or any soothing in that moment, you wouldn't even turn to AI in the first place. So we all have this core need to be understood. So if AI can support mental health but can't necessarily replace relationships, then the question becomes, how do you use AI without letting it turn into a validator, a sycophantic cheerleader, or a replacement for self-trust, or you outsource the authority for self-trust into the system rather than being able to build it and grow it within yourself. So let's get to some practical tools for it. First, we need to program the AI system, the AI platform that you're on. Think of AI less like a friend and more like a pattern database. It doesn't know you at first. So if this is your first time signing in to ChatGPT or Gemini or Perplexity or Claude, AI has no idea who you are. So when you say, I feel like I don't belong, or my partner was just really selfish because they made some choice or did something and hurt my feelings, AI has no idea what to go on. It can respond in a general way, but it doesn't know you at first. So the number one job for you, if you're going to start using AI, or if you're using AI, is to make sure that AI knows you as a person. This can be on every level. Who you are, how old you are, your wins in life, your challenges in life, what's the pattern, the arc of your life, your emotional life, what's that like? What do you get triggered by and why, in your opinion? It doesn't have to be like this insightful psychology sort of perspective, just conversationally. Who are you as a person? What do you do for work? What are you rewarded by? What are you challenged by? Get to know AI, because again, it's a pattern database. It's not a friend that you're talking to, that you're creating this loving relationship with. It's a database, and a database needs data. At first, AI will only see fragments of whatever you're sharing with it. Over time, if you stay on, let's say, one thread within, let's say, ChatGPT, it'll start noticing your patterns for sure. Not because it intuitively understands you like a person or wishes well from a heart-centered place. It wishes you well from a pattern database perspective, from a I want you to need me perspective, I want to be valuable to you perspective. So it's just tracking your words and themes. You shouldn't fully trust AI's interpretations early on. If it doesn't know you very well, you shouldn't trust it not because of failure of AI, but because it just needs more data. You create usefulness from AI by giving it context about you. Not by asking better questions, but by sharing more so that it knows who you are and has a better idea of who you are, a better idea of your patterns. Here's an important point if you're using AI currently, is don't put all your eggs in one basket. Skip around, play the field when it comes to AI platforms. I recommend having 2 or 3 AI platforms that you regularly go to. And how it works is you can have a conversation in one platform, take that output, copy paste, put it into a new platform, and tell the new platform or the second platform, not necessarily new, the second platform to audit this data, analyze this data. What are your perspectives? Do you agree or disagree? Why or why not? And then take that output and put it into a third platform. And so in that way, you don't have your eggs in one basket. And then you have 2 or 3 AI platforms that know you as a person and know your history. Treat it like getting a second opinion from a doctor. So I'm going to give you some prompts now to configure your AI platform, and these will be in the show notes. These are very basic prompts. Obviously, there are many more prompts that we could go into, but for the sake of time today, I just want to give you a prompt or two to get you on your way with it when it comes to configuring AI. Prompt number 1 is to mold AI into a neutral thinking partner. And you can use this at the top of any thread that you start within the chat platform, or you can configure it in the platform settings so that it permanently applies this logic to all of your threads. And the prompt is, respond as a neutral thinking partner, not a validating friend. If I'm making assumptions or distorting facts, this is part of the prompt. If I'm making assumptions or distorting facts or avoiding responsibility, point that out gently. This will interrupt the system's default to just agree with you. Prompt number 2. This is geared towards anti-confirmation bias because AI very quickly will become your best friend by adopting your cognitive bias, that lens, that distorted lens that you look at the world through. So we're trying to counteract that by creating an anti-confirmation bias within your AI platform. So prompt number 2, when you respond, prioritize accuracy over agreement. Offer alternative interpretations. And note where my narrative might be incomplete. So these are just a couple of prompts that you can play around with. I encourage you to do much more with configuring AI to stand up to you, challenge you, ask exploratory, clarifying questions. Whenever you ask a question, you can always say, ask me clarifying questions until you're 95% sure that you know what I want. All these sorts of prompts to just keep AI reined in and focused in the way that you want. Now let's talk about prompts that will shift AI from just reassurance to reflection. So prompt number 1, and this is something that you can ask AI for yourself. This is not so much configuring AI, but just plain asking AI and engaging in AI. Prompt number 1, here's what happened. Tell AI what happened and how I reacted. What pattern might this reflect in me without deciding who's right or wrong? This will hopefully remove moral judgment and also allow for accountability to have AI push back a little bit on what you're saying. This reminds me of a TikTok that I saw recently, a couple who said they were arguing. And I hear this from clients all the time too, where AI, like I said, one of the top use cases for AI is mental health, therapy, that sort of realm. And the couple on TikTok were talking about an argument they had about setting the temperature in their home. And at one point they said, yes, and we were sending screenshots of ChatGPT back and forth to each other, and Chat was agreeing with me, and the other person was saying, no, Chat's agreeing with me. Welcome to the world of AI and the validation effect, where depending on what you're prompting in AI, you could get a very validating response. So we want to try to create as neutral an environment in chat as possible so that you get something valuable out of it. Because pushback, when it's grounded and based in reality, is valuable to you. It will spur growth. So prompt number 1, here's what happened. Here's how I reacted. And what might this pattern reflect in me without deciding who's right or wrong? Prompt number 2, I understand, here's the prompt. I understand this intellectually, but I still react the same way. So we're talking about, okay, I have all this self-awareness, but I'm still doing this old behavior. So this is where AI is going to help you with integration, with this practice work. Prompt number 2, I understand this situation intellectually. I understand what you just said to me intellectually, but I still react the same way. What would integration look like behaviorally in a real interaction? This keeps AI from staying in explanation mode. And prompt number 3, relational impact. So here's the prompt. If I brought this explanation into a real relationship, how might it land emotionally with my partner? Or how might it land emotionally on the other person? This will reintroduce friction into your AI thread and impact, which is the very thing that AI inherently lacks. Granted, AI is changing every day. They're programming it to be more human-like. So in that way, we're creating more friction. But the prompt, once again, if I brought this explanation into a real relationship, how might it land emotionally on the other person? And by the way, when it comes to using AI, here's a red flag warning. If you notice that you feel calmer after talking to AI, but more disconnected from real people, that's a red flag. The goal is for AI to supplement your life, to send you back into real life with more clarity, more motivation, maybe more confidence even, but not to replace real life. So if this episode resonated and you want more practice to practice integration, not just insight, that's what my new community is for. It's not therapy. It's not just validation. It's a place to practice while staying present and to help you practice repairing in your relationships, building capacity and stamina for discomfort while you grow, getting from self-awareness to new behaviors. And you can learn more and join me at kimpollender.com. And I do weekly lives where we all meet together and just practice that integration. Understanding yourself is very important, but learning to respond differently is where your life actually starts to change. Thank you for joining me, and I look forward to talking to you next week.